Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Stool podcast, a podcast for woodworkers and the maker community in general. This is episode number 24. My name is Robin Lewis from robinlewismakes.com. I'm joined by Joey Chalk from King Post Timberworks.
Hello.
And John Crawford from Periodic Furniture Studio.
Hi. Hello.
We live stream the recording on YouTube every Thursday evening at 7 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time, or UTC plus 10. Or you can watch or listen to it later on YouTube, iTunes, or SoundCloud. I want to say hello to everyone in the chat. We'll get to your questions and comments towards the end of the show, but feel free to chat amongst yourselves. The idea being that this is also a place for people to meet. So a couple of announcements. Obviously, the biggest one is that the three of us are heading down to Malini tomorrow via Brisbane. We've got the Malini Wood Expo that we're talking at on Saturday at around midday. And so we're all heading down there tomorrow from various parts of the world. And then, hoping to meet up with a few of you guys on Saturday evening at the Fox Hotel in Brisbane. If you haven't already, obviously we want to encourage you to take a look at the event and come join us. We've got a small group, but they're all very excited. So we're also super pumped for that. And yeah, it's going to be a very interesting and I think exciting weekend.
Yeah. Yep. Cool. I'll second that.
On top of that, Jordan, I looked into that Discord server that you were talking about the other day. I've created a Discord server, but what I've decided is I'm going to leave it as is for now. I want to get an idea from people listening if anyone is actually interested in it. So it's there, it's ready to go. We can kick it off. If you are listening to this, send me a message, send us some feedback or something if a Discord server is something that you're interested in. I'm very keen on it. I'm quite keen to get involved in it, but obviously we want to make sure that it's going to be
Explain it briefly for people like me who don't know what the heck you're talking about.
So a Discord server think of a 24/7 chat/forum that's running. And the idea with it is that between the podcasts, every week, we can run a chat where we can bounce ideas of each other, possibly get questions, possibly answer questions. Everyone in the chat can get involved in it during the week, and then we can use that as a tool for the podcasts. When we do it, we can also use that as a chat during the podcast. So it's just a way of getting you guys, giving you guys an opportunity to talk and share ideas between the podcasts if you want that.
Yeah, and just extending the community. And I will just note that wasn't my idea. It was, and I do apologize to the sir that gave me the idea, but I can't remember your name. But it was, someone popped into a show that I was at and suggested the idea, and I thought it was a good idea to consider. Cool.
Yeah. All right. So that's it for announcements. Let's talk about what we've been working on this week. And I think for this week, we're going to start with Jordan, because I know myself and Joey are very keen to hear what you've been working on this week.
Oh, Dad, not much. I haven't done anything this week. But no, this week I have received delivery of a 4.4 ton or 4.3 ton lathe from a machinist shop. It's not a woodworking lathe, obviously. It's a metal lathe, and it is pretty damn big. So it was quite a challenge getting it in, because it's not like, a heavy machine for me in this workshop is like 1 to 1.5 ton, which my forklift can carry, but this is a completely different scale. So getting it in was even a challenge, because most high-abs can't lift 4.5 ton. They can lift up to about 3, generally speaking, and then you get into the next level of high-abs where you're looking at 12 to 24. And I had to get one of those really big. I think his was a 16 ton high-ab, and it was a 6-axle truck. Jeez. With a 16-ton high-ab on the back of it. And, he made light work of it, but it was just finding him took ages.
Oh, really?
And it turned out that he's cheaper than my old high-ab operator that I'd use by $20 an hour. So, I found my new operator.
Sorry, just to interrupt you. High-ab, what's that?
A high-ab is, it's a crane mounted onto the back of a truck, generally a rigid axle truck. Just a crane basically.
Okay.
But built onto a truck. And yeah, so he made light work of it. But this high ebb that he had was insane. So I walked outside when he first pulled up, and he was getting his outriggers kind of down on the floor. And I said, "Oh, I'm just popping next door for a coffee. Do you want one?" And he said yes. So I got him a coffee, and then I walked back out, and he was nowhere to be seen. So I thought, "Oh, he must be popping to the loo or something." And I walked into the workshop, and he comes up behind me, scares the Jesus out of me, and I see the crane starts to move, and he's got this like remote control pack on him, and he's just walking around, just spotting, making sure that everything's clearing. And I was like, "Dude, you make my little high ebb on my truck look like a toy."
Nothing.
Yeah. So it was awesome, but yeah, it went pretty smoothly. I mean, I hired some 12-ton machine skates. So if you don't know what they are, it's imagine a pallet jack, and it has those hard red nylon wheels in the front of it. It's essentially an array of those wheels in a really heavy old steel construction housing, and it just allows you to transport massive loads relatively easily. Obviously, you still have a lot of mass, so you need some sort of assistance if you haven't got the bodies. So I ended up using my forklift and just kind of pulling and pushing, just bit by bit, checking, lifting it up with a toe jack, adjusting skates and pushing. And the whole thing took about 2.5 hours to get into position.
Now,
Sorry, go, Joe.
Presumably you've got it like against a wall or something. That's where it's going to sit.
Yeah, sort of.
Have you taken into account having to get behind it to do maintenance and stuff on this thing?
Yeah, I had. So it's mounted in a position where I'd say it's a meter away from the wall.
Right.
So you can still get behind it to work on maintenance on the motor or gearbox or whatever, and you can still get your bar passed through if you have to do, not that it has a collet chuck, but if you did, you could. And then on the hind side, it's still got enough of probably about 600 mil to walk through, and if it gets stuck, I can also shift a rack that's there.
Okay, cool.
So it is like kind of a thought out spacing as far as someone that's never really had to deal with it goes, thinking about what possibly would need to happen.
When that thing was on the skates, was it quite easy could you push it yourself or not a chance?
Oh, no, not a chance. So I managed to push it with two people about 300 mil or a foot, and then it just said no more. I'm not moving. So yeah, I had to use the forklift for basically the entire thing, because it was busting the pooper, as we like to say in the shifting industry, and it was just too hard. But no, I mean, we got it in. If you guys don't know, I got given this lathe that was free. I didn't spend $1 other than getting it delivered, so I couldn't say no. And the whole thing works. There's like
really, was going to be my next question. Have you
I
actually
obviously haven't had a huge amount of time to play with it because I'm just so busy here. But from what I've discovered, is all the gearing works, the threading works, the cross feed. What are you calling it? The power feed for the gantry in and out and across. That all works. The only thing that I need to replace is on the top slide, so the one that you can do the kind of angle cuts on. Yeah. That's missing its hand wheel and threaded rod. So currently it's just on there static.
Well, you can make one on the lathe.
Exactly, I can make it. I just need to find the threading and kind of figure it out.
I suppose you also need to kind of go over it and check that things are actually accurate, however you do that. But
yeah. And my dad, or my old man, has a lot of machinist friends. Oh, cool. So, and there's one that's local to me, and he wants some wood kind of machined. And I said, well, give it a once over, and I'll do your wood, and we'll be happy.
So you can. It's like pretty much plug and play then.
Yeah, and it had the 10 amp plug on it, so it fits into my sockets already. Well, I don't know if it is only 10 amps, but that's
it's not 3-phase.
It is 3-phase, but three-phase 10 amp plug.
Oh, I see. Yeah, right.
Yeah, because generally nowadays everything comes with a 20 amp plug. Yeah, and my workshop is so old that it hasn't got 20 amp plugs anymore. Right. It's only got 10 amp plugs, which can be a hindrance, but
not when you buy old machines.
But not when you buy old machines. So I'm happy.
Cool.
Yeah. And other than that, I mean, I haven't done anything other than spray some degreaser on it. I've done a delivery, which is a 670 kilometer round trip to a table. And
is that the one that's the video that you had on Instagram that you were maxing out your thickness planer?
No, so that's what I'm working on today, actually. So that's just they're like massive end grain chopping boards for a built-in. It's a weird assembly. It's kind of these half-round chopping boards which go either side of a sink, which is just recipe for a disaster. But that's why they need them replaced, because they're horrible. And I kind of explained to them that unless you take these out every day and make sure there's no water pooling under it, it's going to happen again.
Yeah.
And they were happy with it, and they were happy with my price and everything. So
could you put I can't really picture exactly what's going on with these, but could you sit them off the ground with some spaces?
Yeah, so what I've discussed with them, so it sits basically, it's got a 10 mil edge all the way around, so it slots on, and most of it can't pull in water, but it's just that corner fillet on the stainless steel kind of housing that it can pool under. So I've said that I'll put some standoffs under that board of just stainless steel, and then that would prolong the life, but it's still going to happen again eventually.
Cool.
But yeah, it's cool. But yeah, other than that, not a huge amount to report. So
I like the way you said it. Other than moving a 4.2 ton machine into my shop, nothing much else to report.
Yeah. No, it was pretty cool. It was heavy.
It's something small.
How about you? Some tooling for it.
Yeah. How about you, Joey?
Okay, so I finished this built-in bookcase thing I've been building. So there is a couple of pictures of that on my Instagram, and there's just a lot of parts to this thing. I think yesterday went through and cut all my scribers and last few shelves, and there's just tons and tons of little bits of plywood that had to be cut, edged, and painted on 3 sides, and it just took 2 days of just stuffing around painting little pieces. But I finally got that done. Emailed the guy at like 2 o'clock this afternoon, emailed him some pictures, and he's already paid me. So bam, that's the kind of client you like. So I won't be installing that till I get back from Oz Wednesday, I think. I'll be doing the install. I'm just pretty much halfway through now, this counter for a skate shop that I did some work for like years ago. And so it's pretty much just plywood boxes. We ripped some walnut down, and the guy wanted it to stay kind of rough sawn, rusticy. So we just put the bandsaw face against the carcass, pinned on these walnut planks, and just gave it a bit of a sand and clear coat, and it's looking pretty good. Just waiting for some glass for that. And I have, so this is going to tie in, I think, to tonight's subject. I'm not sure if I should talk about it now or later, but you will remember last week I talked about the extension table I'm doing, the new one with the X on it, and how much trouble I had as I made the base frame too big, blah, blah, blah. So turns out it was another major mistake. And I had to cut one of the rails off and glue it back on. So
yes,
that stuffed up my day.
Sorry, cut it off at the leg?
So where the rail meets the leg at the X leg, I had to chop through my tenon with the Japanese saw and move the rail 4 mil back over in towards the rest of the other rail, and make a new mortise on each side and put a big tenon in and epoxy it in.
Sorry, so you moved it?
I moved it
outwards or inwards?
No, I moved it inwards.
Oh, so can you see it?
It's actually, it came up really well. Like, you cannot see that I did anything. So I re-sanded the whole thing down again and refinished it, but.
But there's no end grain from the tenons showing.
No, because there was a shoulder there. So
okay, right. Yeah.
Did you discover this before or after delivery?
No, I haven't delivered. I
haven't delivered. Okay, so it's not been that much.
I had emailed the guy and said it's ready for delivery tomorrow, meaning today. And he said, "Oh, can you hold it for a week?" And I was like, "Yeah, okay, fine." And then I went to just test it out, and I was like, "How come this thing is jamming? Like, what is going on?" It was working okay the other day, and then suddenly now it's like it's jamming like 300 mil away from being shut. And I'm like, what the hell is going on? We spent probably 2 hours troubleshooting. Finally got the tape measure out, and like, I stuffed up my rails. So cut that off.
At least it was before delivery you discovered it.
Yeah, and now it's like smooth as butter. Like it's really awesome. I'm really happy with how it's moving. So the problem was essentially because one rail was slightly too wide where it met the legs, it was binding the dovetail as it got closer and closer to the leg. It was just binding and getting tighter and tighter and creating a tapered sliding dovetail, which is the opposite of what you want in that case.
And I guess with that, because there's no sort of positive, there's no positive lock on your mistake, like you could just be thinking, the legs are twisted on this floor or something like that.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Like we started leveling it up, and because my floor is terrible, so we started putting wedges everywhere under all the legs, getting it perfectly level, and then like started pulling squares out and like doing diagonal measurements, and like, what is going on? This thing should be working. And then we took the tops off because we thought maybe that there was a twist in the top that was causing something to bind, and that wasn't working. And so anyway, pretty much rebuilt it in a day, and she's back on track. So,
yeah,
that was a fun one.
Cool.
Rob, what have you been doing?
So not too much this week, mostly tiling. This week I've been doing so I finished the floor. I've done the majority of the walls up to the bath. And then this week I started on the bath. And this is where I've kind of figured out that I can tile. And I've always said I can tile, but I'm not a particularly good tiler. And this project has really pushed me. And I'm kind of sitting back now going, yeah, I'm definitely not a good tiler. I mean, it's not horrible. And I'm not unhappy that I did it, but at first, if you actually get in and start looking at all the lines and stuff, it's not great.
So you're not going to buy a van and put Robin's tiling on the side of it?
No, that van's never going to pay itself off. That's for sure.
It doesn't take much at all, though, for two tiles to like. You can be such a small amount out of line, and your eye just picks it up. Yeah. Like it's crazy how easily it is to spot those kinds of things.
And it's all these, the reason it's taking me so long is it's all these different levels. So you're sort of stepping up, so it's all small cuts, and I'm putting in that aluminium trim around all of it. So getting that all to line up and look good, it's really tricky because nothing in the bathroom is square. So when you are trying to line up, say, the two aluminium pieces on a corner, there's no such thing as a 45 corner. So everything is these minor adjustments, and you are trying to minimize that, and you're trying to cheat here and there. So you're constantly making these small adjustments. And unfortunately, I've just ended up where on the main face of the bath, it all makes sense in the video. On the main front of the bath, there's actually a lip. Now, it doesn't look bad because there's just an overhang, but that overhang wasn't supposed to be there, and it's overhanging by about 5 millimeters. Right. And that's just purely down to I wasn't thinking properly because there's 1,000,001 things going on in my head. And I'm not good at this. So it just, yeah.
And I ask a question about your layout initially for the tiling. What I've seen in the past is Tyler will set a laser, self-leveling laser in the middle of the floor and shoot a datum line all the way around down at the level of the first tile, and then just work to that for the first tile. Did you do anything like that, or did you just kind of start at one wall and work around? Or
no? So the floor is 45 to the bath, so that comes off 45 from there, and that you just start on that one line. Yeah, and then the bath was where I set my level line, right, with just short of a full tile to the floor, so I could scribe it in, and then that's level all the way up, and then it just follows that line. Because it's going up and over the bath, there's so many different lines that you're never really going to pick up if it's not there. And then obviously when I get to the main wall behind it, I'll do the same thing with the level line. So yeah, it's coming on. As I say, it's not the greatest job, but as someone who's only ever tiled once before, I'm totally happy with it, and it's not like I'm going to rip it up. This week, I also got my bath installed, plumbed, just temporarily. So there's no grout, there's no silica, nothing. But myself and my wife we just can't do these cold showers anymore. And with me going away over the weekend, I just said, you know what, that's cool. I'll put in a waste pipe so you can use this. You can have a bath. But I've said to her, you've got to be super careful, because I don't want to come back and just see water everywhere. It's not a problem if it's a small amount, but you've got to try and keep it as dry as possible. So I never wanted to go this route, to be using it before everything was finished, but it's just we're just too far into winter now, and it's just becoming a nightmare. I don't mind the cold showers too much, but my pregnant wife has needs, and I don't know how much longer I can push this.
Are you going to do a glass screen up for the shower above, or what's?
No, so I decided just on doing a curtain.
Yeah.
Because the bath is very close to the window. You wouldn't build it like that today, and I don't even know if that would necessarily pass in terms of code. So putting in a sheet of glass there would have just been a nightmare trying to get it all to line up. So with the curtain, that's fine. The curtain can just hang wherever the curtain's going to hang, and it's just going to make life easier. It's also not a very modern house, so to put in that those panes of glass, I don't think would necessarily suit the look of the house as well.
True. Yeah. Sweet.
So it's doing the best I can with what I have in terms of the room. So yeah, that's what we went with.
Do better.
Thanks. I'll keep that in mind. All right, so that's about me. Oh, and then the other thing as well, obviously, was getting ready for this weekend coming, working on our talk. And we've got a very special surprise for anyone who comes along to the meetup. Jordan and I have been working on something. So
I was going to say, so special that I don't know what it is.
now I'm on the same page.
It's just a sort of a token of gratitude if you can come along. So we'll unveil that on Saturday afternoon. So tonight's show, we are going to be talking about we've talked about some of our biggest mistakes in the past and some of our challenges. So tonight we thought we'd talk about some of our wins, some of our biggest wins, some of our best projects. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a full project, maybe just a small detail here and there. So I thought I would start. And to date, one of my favorite projects is my coffee table. And it's a super simple project, very, very simple. But that coffee table was cut down when I was living in Adelaide almost 2 years ago. And that slab I've held on to for so long. It's traveled from, one end of Australia to the next. And I remember when I was putting wrapping the slab up, I was like, all the furniture, whatever. This slab was wrapped in blankets and bubble wrap. And I was like, this has got to survive the trip. I was so concerned about that. And anyway, brought it over here. It finally dried. And it was, as I say, it's literally a live slab that's been cut. That's it.
Yeah.
Flattened it, spent days on the finish, just trying to get it perfect. And turned out as I say, one of my best, purely because of what I had to do and the time it took to take that, what was literally a tree outside my window, 2 years to get to this point of view.
I'm trying to remember which one it is you're talking about, but I'm pretty sure I'm thinking of the Wood Knights coffee table, because he did a red gum or something. Okay. So could you describe your coffee table you're referring to so I can remember it?
Well, it's silky oak for starters, so it's obviously very yellow. I would have put the video out about maybe a year ago. Yeah, geez, it was a year ago.
Yeah.
It was a sponsored video. I got the legs from a company down in Melbourne, and it was probably one of my longer videos that I've done because I went into like all the details about the history and blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I think I remember it. I'm going to have to go back and look over it, but I do remember a silky oak table.
Yeah. Actually, I had 2 slabs from that tree. And then I did another one where I had this, I think it was some kind of a gum. I think it might have been spotted gum, where I did this bridle joined square. So it had two hairpin legs on one end, and then on the other end it sat on, sort of floated on the bridle joint.
Yeah.
Which is pretty cool. So, yeah.
Awesome.
How about you, Joe?
Oh, man. So I was saying a little bit before that we went live that I'm not sure that I have one overall project that I'm 100% happy with, but I've certainly got elements of a few projects that I really like. I thought I'd say, to start with, probably the extension table, which was my last video. The video before my desk video. That's one of my favorite jobs, just because I got to essentially design the whole thing. Every part of that is my imagination, not my clients. Really, they just kind of said, "I want the table, and it's got to be this size." And those clients, I had built the altar for a little while before, and so I was able to use the cherry. That's why I had the cherry on the sides, and it's in the same room as the altar, and so it really ties in with the table. It looks really nice. The mechanism I felt was one of the best parts of joinery I've ever done. It just worked so perfectly. And so going back to my story just before about this other table, which is completely not worked, I think that could be a downside of having a really good job and then being asked to do essentially the same thing straight afterwards.
Magic only happens once.
Well, I was just in... I was in like, oh, this is going to be easy. I just smashed that out of the park, so I don't have to think about this version. And I made a mistake on just about every aspect of that job. I think I kind of stuffed up a bit. So it's a bit of a lesson for me to not rest on your laurels, so to speak. You know, you've always got to be actually thinking about what the hell you're making and not just assuming everything will be okay.
Yeah.
I think that's quite true. Like, even when I think back to when I was in school and would ace a test in some subject, I'd get cocky and then I'll like slip down a bit, and then instantly my effort goes down on the next thing I do for that particular test.
Right.
So if you think you've nailed something, for me anyway, it can be a recipe for disaster.
And not only that, on the second time round, that's when people are really watching you, because they're like, "You did it once, can you do it twice?" In the music industry, it's your second album is that's the one you got to make happen.
Yeah. Same as writing as well, apparently.
What, with books?
Yeah, apparently.
Oh, didn't know that was a thing.
My mother's an author, so she always goes on about it.
Oh, right. Any decent books? Well, sorry, let me rephrase that. Stick my foot in it. Any books published?
Yeah, so her Leaving Elvis is one of the award-winning ones. So if you're out there, it's pretty good. I liked it. I read it. Leaving Elvis. Michelle Michaud Crawford is her writing name. Check it out if you're interested.
Interesting. And you, Jordan?
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of in the same boat as Joey with not a specific project, but I mean, I'd go more broad. I think every project that I do finish and deliver and the client's happy, I get a sense of like accomplishment and stokedness from it all. But if I'm thinking about specific projects, I think it was one of the first tables I built in this workshop. It's just a dining table because that's all I ever do, obviously. But the base of it was this really nice, like all the joinery was curved, so it was like a concave into a convex, and that was mortise and tenon, and it just fitted perfectly. And I did these little relief angles so you could see that joint, and it stood out. And I did these upward curves on the bottom and upward curves on the top, and everything just kind of felt pretty organic. And for that project at that time, I felt it was my nicest table. Now I look back at the photos of that, and I think proportionately it's a little bit off. I think the upright of the trestle could have been a little bit narrower because it looks a little bit heavy. But at the time, I did feel pretty stoked with that because it was the first time I was trying to do this hard, well, not hard, but different joinery with it, you know, being curves into curves and having it fit perfectly and all of that sort of stuff. So that's probably my most proud or most enjoyed project, because it was a project that I thought about, I drew out and made, and it worked. It wasn't, you know, there was no scratching your head. It was just, I know how I'm going to do this. I'm going to cut this joint before I cut this, so I can cut the curve, and then the joint will still fit, and blah, 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 blah. And it actually worked. So that was a pretty stoked project for me.
That's
Another
cool.
one was that, I don't know if you remember, I did a weird display rack for bicycle rims when this is probably 6 or 8 months ago now.
I remember that one.
But it's like, this guy approaches me and he says, I need to display rims, no spokes, no hubs, just round rims. And I don't want it to be hanging because I want to be able to pick it up, but I also need them to be secure because, you know, some of these rims cost $4,000, and if they get knocked and dented, then I can't use them. And like, the challenge in that was huge. So I came up with a basic design and I showed him like the concept, but I had no idea how I was going to implement it. And he said, yeah, let's go ahead, without me really knowing how the heck I was going to make these rims stand up. And I just kind of rolled with it. And I got to the stage where I had to engineer the what would you call it? It's not really a clamp, but the steady for the rims. And I just kind of did it and freestyled, and it worked. And then I think like that project just came out really nice. I felt it had a good form. It was a pretty simple construction. It was like nailed together, and I think I even used pocket screws to hold the rails in place. But you know, it was working to the budget. Like, you know, he didn't want to spend a huge amount on it, and I didn't necessarily want to lose the job, so I just said, oh well, I can do it. But you're going to have compromises. And I did it, and it worked really well. And I've walked in there a few times, and I've seen that stand, and it looks great still. It's held up really well. So that's probably my other big one, and that's just because it was a challenge to design it. And I never really had the vision in my head until the very end. And then when it all came together, it worked. So I'd say that is the other big plus project for me.
Yeah. For me, I think my federal desk is going to be up there with one of my biggest achievements. I think that for a lot of reasons. One is that it took me as the longest project I've ever worked on. Partly just because I literally would put it aside for a week and actually do real work and then get onto it for a couple of days. But also just man hours. I think if I did it straight through, it would easily still be the longest single project I've ever worked on. And I still get to see it just about, well, I can pretty much see it whenever I want. My desk in my dad's room. So I still really like just the look of it. I think it looks exactly like I wanted it to look like. Whether or not that's what someone else likes to look at is a different question, but I think it came out exactly how I wanted it to come out looking like. The function is slightly not quite right, but that's just me experimenting with things. But I think the proudest part of that is the veneering that I did. And that was really the first time I'd veneered a job, and getting those book matched walnut burl veneers to work, and then working with the curly maple, it just came out so good. And then doing the inlays into it, and like Jordan just said before, he had this process in his mind where he was going to do step A, B, C, D, and E, and it worked. And that's how I approached that one as well, where I had a really thorough laid out mental plan, and everything seemed to just work according to that plan. I was pretty shocked that it just went together. So that job was really fun, and super cool project for me.
Because I guess with where you guys are at, like any simple jobs for you, you've either done them or you know exactly how to do it. So for you to achieve that level of internal success, you've got to have a really complicated project and do it well, because you've done all the simple stuff, a million times. Like,
in a way.
Yes and no. I mean, I'm working on chopping boards right now, which
I was just about to use
like
it
a
as
large scale, and like I've seen this thing come together, and I still get a sense of what's the way of not
accomplishment.
But going, you're like going, hell yeah, I've done this.
Yeah.
I did this.
Because with a chopping board, it's easy because you know what a perfect chopping board looks like, and it's easy to achieve that. So,
well, it's
I always say that a chopping board is the perfect project for like anyone that you're going to bring into your workshop or apprentice for you to make, because you have to have that timber perfectly machined. If you haven't got perfectly mating bases which are parallel, flat, you don't want any of that ripply crap that you get out of a planer. You need it to be spot on to have a good chopping board, a butcher block. And that goes for old furniture. If you're not machining your timber correctly from the get-go, your layout's not going to be correct. And then from your layout, you're going to have the compiling issues all the way throughout. So they're not as easy as just gluing a few bits of wood together. I mean, you can make one easily, but it's not going to be perfect.
Yes, but you know exactly how to achieve that perfect chopping board. Whereas, like Joey, you were talking about your desk.
Yeah.
There must have been some steps where you were crossing fingers and being like, I hope this is... There must have been, because it was so complicated.
Every step of that, I had no idea if it was going to work. But
so surely at the end of that, you step back and you're like, well, I got there. I managed to get there in the end, but you don't have that same level of accomplishment because you haven't owned the whole build, start to finish.
No, but I agree. But I think there's smaller victories, and it kind of annoys me a bit, actually. People don't even, like, someone comes in, Jordan, you'll know really well, people come in and order a dining table. It's not even part of the question that the dining table top is not going to be flat. I mean, they expect you to provide a table that is got a flat wooden top on it. Half of the clients I deal with don't even understand that I have to glue more than one piece of wood together to make a top. They just think I get a piece of wood and put some varnish on it.
Yeah.
So just like making, like, especially I've had a couple jobs where I've just made the table tops for someone. And that's like really stressful, I think, because you're trying to make this perfectly flat, large plank of wood and finish it perfectly. And they're going to see it within 1 second of seeing it. They're going to spot a flaw when the light shines across it. And so doing that, while it's a very simple thing, I think it takes a bit of bloody skill and kind of, especially when the timber's not playing ball. Like if you're dealing with a bit of sapelli that decides it wants to bloody chip every which way, and you keep losing thickness just trying to get rid of the tear out, the next thing you know, your tabletop is 15 mil thick.
So you could use paper plates now. That's about it.
Yeah, that's a really it's a bit of a bugger. So there are times where I will just make a simple square tabletop and it's perfect. That's a pretty good accomplishment for anyone, I think, and they should be proud because it's not that easy.
I would say my most recent small victory was on those 3 meter long tables. Just getting those long planks to glue up without any gaps is a victory, because like jointing a 3 meter long piece of anything is going to be a challenge. But when you're working on a 40, 50-year-old jointer, and then you put the 2 pieces together and they actually come out together, that's quite a victory. And I get that sense of, small victory. So there's little things everywhere.
With that most recent dining table that I did, for me, the win was the breadboard ends. Having never done it, it was amazing. But the surface finish, as you were saying, Joey, is not great. Now, that's tables for me, so I can look past it. But the problem is, and this is why this would never be up in my top achievements, is even though my breadboard ends were amazing, they were so good for a first time, you look and you go, wow, that's so good. And for me, that strikes it off the list, because yes, I had a small victory, but that glaring flaw it was, I can't remember what it was. I think I just had to sand a slight shallow divot to get something out.
Yeah.
That just ruined it for me.
Yeah. Yeah, I used to have this mentality, and I still have the mentality that it's good to have those projects around you as a reminder and to also see where you've come from. And I used to have like my first ever coffee table set up here because it was, for me, it was a reminder, because it's like, damn, this thing's ugly, but it's a reminder. And then I realized if a customer comes in and looks at this and thinks I'm showcasing it, it doesn't say much for me. So I got rid of it and I put it back in my home.
Yeah, that's interesting.
But yeah, I do like it because it is a constant reminder, and it's nice to have that progression. Like you do your first piece of furniture and then your 15th piece of furniture is like a huge step up. So yeah, I like it. So.
Anyway.
Yeah, well, you should be.
Do you now, Joey? I know most, like 90% of what you do is all commission builds, but Joe, with the stuff that you make, like your chopping boards, you make and then sell. Have you ever had one where you've made one and you've said, "Nah, this is too good. This is too good to be sold."
Too good. Not too good. I've had ones where I've not wanted to sell because they're really nice. Like my kitchen at home, I have probably like 10 chopping boards of various styles, and that's too many for any kitchen. So I've kind of gone away from that. But I've had them where, well, I'm pretty particular about my chopping boards. So the one that I'm commissioned on right now, I had to start from scratch today because when I cross-cutted them to flip them and get the end grain up, everywhere had these little tiny cracks, which probably would be fine, but I don't want to risk it being a moisture trap. So I'm pretty like particular about them. But no, I'm not. I wouldn't say I've ever had any that are too good. I've had them just right.
It was probably about 6 months ago. I made a Jarrah writing desk. I call it a writing desk, just nice. And I always started that build with the intention of putting it up for sale. But then I finished it and I said, not a chance. This is the best desk that I've ever made. It's just too good looking. No way I'm going to sell it. Even if it was some astronomically high price, it becomes such a milestone in your career that to sell it, as you were talking about earlier with seeing your achievements, to me, it's really sad if you have to do that.
Yeah. Like a part of me wishes have like a copy of everything I've made. Just not on a serious wish, but just so I can go back and look at them every so often and just see, why the hell did I do this? Or, oh, I liked how I did that. Because having it right in front of you is the best way, for me anyway, to get reminded.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. What I think we might do, I'm just going to have a quick look for an email that I got from someone a while ago that I wanted to touch on.
All right.
In the meantime.
Yeah. Well, there was a question earlier, so why don't you look for the email?
Yeah.
And Robin, you can, Jordan, you can weigh in on this. Earlier, I forget, sorry, it's up in the list. I can't find it where it is in the chat. But do I like dovetail jigs? What do I think of them? Sorry, again, I can't remember your name.
That was Gareth.
Gareth.
Yeah.
He just bought himself a dovetail jig. Great. Go for it. I'm not sure what my opinion is on why I don't like them. I just have found it easier to do them by hand. Like I've always thought the jigs seem, unless you have a dedicated spot, which I guess you would if you have a dovetail jig, although there are some that apparently that you just kind of clamp to the bench when you want to use them. But it seems like you need a kind of dedicated table that just holds your dovetail jig. And you have a dedicated router that is set up permanently. That would make it worthwhile time-wise, I think. But depends if time's not that big of an issue. But for me, I'm pretty sure that I could throw together a dovetail for a drawer and the time you could set up a router jig and all that. But in saying that, if you times that by 10, you're going to be way quicker to do it on a jig.
Yeah.
But what I don't like is that they're uniform in size.
Oh, the newer jigs, like the
yes.
Lee art, you do have adjustable ones, but a conventional one, that even
Yeah.
space.
But the newer ones you can, but I still think the pin size is limited, and I'm not sure what that is. You could maybe tell me in the comments. Sometimes I'll do a knife edge pin on the dovetail, and I don't think that the jigs do that, and I think that just makes it look pretty. Depends on the job. Like at the moment, I've got a client who wants wooden drawers for her whole kitchen, and I'm like, what way around should I do this? If I went solid or even plywood, having a dovetail jig would probably be the ideal thing. I just make a bunch of boxes in a day. I think that
you can borrow my dovetail machine.
Oh yeah, I'll just put it in the suitcase.
Yeah, fly it over.
Sweet.
I remember watching a video from David Picciuto where he used one of those router jigs. It was the first time I saw it. And I think it was a sponsored video by Rockler. So I don't know how much that would have influenced him. But I just remember him being, and I got this amazing router jig. It's so easy. All you got to do is dup, 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 click, click,
2 hours of setup.
My brain just melted trying to keep up with all the steps. So yeah, I don't know. But surely they would improve the accuracy though of your dovetail.
I imagine they're bang on. I imagine it's perfect.
Yeah, but I mean, isn't that something that makes them worthwhile for someone who can't necessarily do them?
As long as you have like a dedicated router set up, because the way you set the fit is the depth of the router bit. So if you're using a router which you're coming and going, I mean, at least this is the ones that I've used. Maybe these newer ones aren't so dependent on the router. But if that bit is even a fraction of a millimeter off, that's when you start to get gaps in the joint. So if you have the jig and a router that's dedicated to it that you never change, I think it would be faster.
Okay.
To be honest, I think I just don't do. People call me some kind of dovetail person, but I don't do dovetails like drawers or anything that would need it that often. I think I do more larger dovetails like larger joinery dovetails like sliding and carcass type dovetails more than I do drawer dovetails. I actually don't know. Maybe somebody knows. Can you use a jig to do like carcass work for doing case work, like the external corners of a solid timber, say chest of drawers? Do they work on larger timber?
I've used one, I think it was a Lee one when I was still at uni, and I think theirs was probably about 600 to 700 mil like width that you could cut, so you probably could. But yeah, it would be a fairly hefty price tag on that size as well.
Yeah. It's difficult to find larger dovetail bits, I've found.
Yeah, it's true.
All right, I got a question here from Ferg, who I've been promising I was going to get to this question for the last couple of weeks, just haven't had a chance. So here it is. Hey guys, I'm planning on making a set of internal French doors, and I have a couple of questions. What timber would be good to use, or what timber not to use? It will be painted white, so the color and grain pattern is not a factor. Will glued-on beading be okay to hold the glass? I prefer not to purchase specialized router bits. Joey, you know all about painting nice wood.
Yep. Use MDF.
Right. Okay. That's interesting. Is it stable on those long pieces?
It depends a little bit on the style of the door, but you could use MDF. It would be perfectly fine for an internal door. I've actually made, just for kind of my own investigation, I've made cupboard doors, rail and style with a panel, like shaker style door, fully out of MDF, and dominoed them together. And it came out bloody perfect. And they ended up, they went to spray, came back, and it looked mint.
Was the panel floating, or was it just a solid piece?
Fully glued in. It was done properly, like a floating panel, but I glued it in because it's still MDF. So you could buy a sheet of 30 mil MDF and cut all your parts out of it.
Yeah, route out each window or whatever.
Yeah, that would be actually pretty easy. Otherwise, I'd use pine. Pine's actually a very stable door, especially inside where the temperature and everything's reasonably stable. Untreated pine would work pretty good.
My closets that I've just my wardrobes that I've just installed upstairs, I was planning on doing a shaker style door for it, and I thought of MDF, but my concern was, over those long distances, will the MDF start to warp? And because you don't have grain that you can oppose, it's all just going to warp in the one direction.
Yeah.
I've got my front door, which is an external door, is a solid MDF door. I mean, I've been wanting to replace it for since moving in, but it is just MDF door external, and it doesn't swell, it doesn't do anything. It's really good. So
I would say, like, if you were doing a French door with glass panels, usually the glass panels in the top half are longer. You'd have a middle rail somewhere the bottom third, and you'd have, so that top, between the middle rail and the top rail, you may be looking at like 800 mil or something for the longer section of glass. And that's nothing for a bit of 30 mil MDF by, say, 120 wide for a style. I mean, that's not going anywhere.
Does he say where he's based in the email?
No.
Australia, or doesn't say?
Nope, nothing about location.
Because I think I might have even suggested this to you a few weeks ago, Rob. But another timber, if you did want it out of timber, is Polonia, because it's pretty damn stable. It's ultra lightweight. It machines like butter, and it's pretty impervious to like water and moisture. So it makes a good door material. It is on the soft side, but it's being painted anyway. So
yeah, and if it's cheap, you could argue that the bottom's going to get damaged if you're kicking it. But it's not like it's not a panel that's going to get hammered.
No. And as far as just gluing in the strips, as long as it's long grain to long grain, I don't think gluing in the trim would be an issue. But get yourself a little tack gun and just fire a few brads through it, and you'll be laughing. That's how most places do it these days, is just glue and brads, and then they putty over it and paint it.
Because you wouldn't want to glue the beading in, would you, just in case you have a problem with glass?
Yeah, so you'd leave the outside. So you'd leave whichever one you're tacking in without glue. So you'd glue one side of it, and then the other side you wouldn't.
Right. Okay. I'm with you. I assumed you meant glue both sides down, and that's
Oh, well, generally you just do like I mean, I've only ever made one door, so I'm saying this in my terms, but you'd route out the recess, and then you would also add trim onto that just so it matches. But however you do it.
Yeah, that's interesting. With the closet doors that I was thinking of, because you never really see the inside of a closet door, just get one or two sheets and then of MDF, and then get some more strips of MDF, and you literally just route the pattern and glue the shaker side, rails and stiles, and then that's it. And that'll be so easy to do.
But just thinking, and as soon as we're talking about MDF, if you were to use two pieces of 18 mil and sandwich it together, you end up with a 36 mil door, which is perfect size for a door. But that means you could also not do any real joinery and just overlap everything and glue and pin it together. And you kind of sandwich the whole thing together, and that thing would be strong as a rock. And that all you'd need is a skill saw and a drill, and you've got yourself a set of doors.
Yeah.
So that would be, I mean, who knows what this guy his level of woodworking is. But if you just want a nice looking, affordable set of doors, most modern cabinet shops are probably going to make it out of MDF.
Yeah.
Just because no one knows how to do joinery for a start. In these bigger shops, everything's just speed. So
yeah, well, most people wouldn't pay for joinery either because it's just too expensive. Yeah. Cool. All right. Quick one here from Gareth while we've got a couple minutes. George, what's your recommendation on sprayers? Do you have any experience with HVLP systems?
Okay. As far as sprayers, I have no loyalty to any brand really. I just would say look out for anything with a 1.8 millimeter tip or above. A kit which you can get a 1.8, a 2, and a 2.2, I think, is really, really useful because you can kind of spray a bit of everything out of it. I'm only spraying lacquer, so a 1.8 millimeter needle is good for me. And yeah, I mean, I use HVLP technically, but it's compressor run. So I run my big belt drive compressor at about 20 psi, and it just runs it, no worries at all, with a air filter in the way. But yeah, I don't know, just spend as much money as you're comfortable with on a gun, because it is a huge improvement between a $50 gun and a $150 gun. The current gun I use is not gravity fed, so it's a pressure pot underneath, and that was probably about $200, and this thing is just beautiful to use. It's the best gun I've used to date.
You prefer the pressure pot over the gravity, or it just happens to be that way?
It was the only gun on the day they had in stock with a 1.8 mil nozzle. I would have preferred the gravity fed just because it's more comfortable to use and more balanced in your hand. But honestly, I can't tell the difference between what comes out of the nozzle. It's just, how it feels in the hand.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm not a finisher. I'm not a spray painter. I can't really give you any real tips other than get as good as you can and go the larger needle size, because generally the cheaper ones are out there for car painting, hobbyists painting their cars, and that's like a 1.4 mil needle, which is too thin.
Right. Yeah.
Cool. All right. What have we been watching, Joey? I know you said you had something.
Yeah. So I don't really want to bring us down, but slightly sad news, kind of. Simone Yutz from the Tested Crew. She's Simone who does the shitty robots on YouTube. So you probably know all about her. She just put out a video yesterday, the day before. She has a brain tumor.
Oh, jeez. That's the one with the where she got the robot feeding her.
Yeah, that's her. So,
jeez.
So she has a golf ball sized tumor behind her right eye.
She didn't say what kind, did she? It wasn't a acoustic neuroma, was it?
I don't believe in the video that she said the name of it, but she, so far as I know, it's not malignant.
It's benign.
It's benign, which is the better version. So at this stage, everything about this situation is better. She mentioned, so it's a pretty terrible situation, but I felt somehow a little bit connected to her in the way that how she was describing her feelings, and she said how suddenly everything doesn't matter. Because you get this diagnosis, and I thought, man, I could agree with her like 150% that, and I wish that everybody got that chance to feel that feeling that, actually nothing really matters. All the stuff that we stress about, it just doesn't matter, because as soon as you walk out of that doctor's office and you've got that diagnosis, you just do not give a shit about anything else. You just, and it, like, you feel so good because you don't, all the stress is just gone. And so I guess I just want to say, thoughts to Simone, and if any, go and watch the video. It's it's hard to watch, but she's really good about it. She's funny. She's still got a sense of humor, and so yeah, just that's all I needed to say, really.
Did she mention if they were cutting it out? Because if it's
this month, there's a bunch of side effects that could happen, and she could essentially, I think, at the stage, worst case scenario is that she loses her eye.
She'll get paralyzed side in the face.
She could
have balance, because when you lose that, they go in behind your ear. And then from that, they stretch that nerve really far beyond where it will bounce back. So your face will droop a lot. And from that, you'll also lose a lot of your balance and your depth perception and all sorts of stuff. It's a nasty, very invasive surgery, but it's got fairly good success rates. It's just the side effects are impossible to predict until 6 months after the surgery.
Yeah. And as you say, it's not cancerous. So that's the win.
Nope. Yep.
Yeah.
So that's, good and bad news.
That's rough, Sure. All right. Well, my video of the week is by a channel called Vsauce3. I don't know if you guys have ever watched Vsauce.
No.
They're so Vsauce, the main Vsauce channel is Michael something or other. But Vsauce 3 is Jake Roper. Jake Roper? Yes, Jake Roper. And he does these super cool. It's all science stuff. It's all based around science. But he does these amazingly edited videos, and he's talked about in the past about his writing process for a video, and it's just months and months of research, and then they put it together with the music and this, and it's just the way he puts these videos together, the tone of the video, amazing. Anyway, here's one of the most recent one is called Impossible Objects, Perceptual Paradoxes. And he goes into a bit of the design process and how we as people, how we acknowledge and perceive certain designs. And I thought from a woodworking perspective, it was quite interesting to watch that and how your brain works on designs and how your brain associates designs or associates objects with learnt design. So it was just quite interesting. I think especially you guys doing a lot of designing, you might enjoy the take.
I'll have to check that one out.
Yeah, as I say, and if it's not of any value, at least it's going to be entertaining.
Yeah, right. Cool. All right.
Cool. So that link will be down below. I'll get the one with Simone in shortly.
Yeah.
Other than that, myself and Joey and Jordan are heading off tomorrow morning. Joey, I believe you're an early start.
Yep, I'm out at the door at something like 3:30 tomorrow morning.
What time are you, John?
I'm out the door at about 5:30 this morning.
Jeez. So I'm the closest to the venue, and I live fairly close to the airport. So I think I'm off at 7:30 for my 8 o'clock flight, which is pretty
Hey,
awesome.
Robin, you can stop talking now.
Yeah.
Don't worry. I know that feeling, but yeah, I got lucky on this one. So the three of us are heading down to the Malini Wood Expo tomorrow. We're doing a talk on Saturday afternoon, and then we're doing a meetup with a whole bunch of people in Brisbane on Saturday night. If you can make it, the link is down below. We'd love to say hello to a few of you.
Yep, cool.
So that's about all for tonight's show. Thanks very much to everyone who got involved in the chat. Again, we're just continually, the chat is getting bigger and bigger and busier and busier, and it's really great to see. So thank you to everyone who got involved. Really do appreciate it. And we'll see all of you guys again next Thursday, same time, same place.
Great. See ya.
See you later.